It is an incredible 3 words I get to say for the first time this calendar year. It's game week, everybody. The BYU football program prepares for their season opener. Based on the weekend's results, the Cougars should come flying out of the chute.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. I'm Jake Hatch, executive producer at the KSL Sports Zone in Salt Lake City, Utah, and a 14-year credentialed media member at BYU. I am your resident expert and insider as your host here on this podcast. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Coming up on today's show, we're talking about BYU and the fact that based on how we saw both Portland State, who BYU faces this Saturday, and the week after that, taking on the Stanford Cardinal, BYU should be absolutely rolling right out of the gates this season. We'll get into that. Then we're going to catch up with BYU edges and defensive ends coach Kelly Poppinga. He's also the BYU special teams coordinator. Gives you an in-depth look at both of those position groups because I think both of them have critical roles to fill if BYU wants to do what they hope to do this season. And we'll finish up today's show with a one-on-one conversation with Bob Mulatalo, one of the top 3 rated prospects in BYU's 2026 recruiting cycle. Why is he so locked in with BYU, and how did he perform over the weekend when Lone Peak took on Orem in Utah high school football action? We'll get to all that and more ahead on today's show. It's all brought to you today by our friends over at FanDuel. Get to FanDuel today. Football season is right around the corner, and visit their app right now and start planning your futures bets because they have their Futures Day coming up on the 26th. All right, let's talk about BYU football. Now, a lot of you probably did the same thing I did on Saturday. It's week 0. It means there's a handful of games, not a full slate of college football games. But the good news was, if you're a BYU football fan, you got to watch both of BYU's first 2 opponents in action. We'll start off in chronological order as BYU gets ready to take on Portland State this weekend. If you watch Tarleton State and Portland State play, you saw absolute domination on the part of Tarleton State. Now, Tarleton State is one of the premier programs in FCS football, whereas Portland State, they're decidedly not that. Portland State hosted Tarleton State, and it was as one-sided as I have seen in quite some time in an FCS game. For the game, we saw Tarleton State run for 301 yards on Portland State. There was a big thought coming into this season, especially after last year, that Portland State was endeavoring to improve on defense because they were just, quite frankly, atrocious a year ago defensively. The metrics bore it out that they were one of the worst defensive teams in college football. Well, through one game of the season, doesn't look like much has improved. 301 yards rushing, giving up an average of 7.9 yards per carry, everybody. That's just absolutely astronomical numbers. 3 touchdowns. And the thing about this, Victor Gabalis, the quarterback for Tarleton State, also completed 14 of 24 passes for 152 yards. You total all that up, it's 453 yards of total offense between rushing and passing, and it probably could have been even worse as Tarleton rolled out to a 42-0 victory. And I'm telling you, I watched probably 90% of that game. Tarleton could have made it even worse had they been a little sharper in the first half of the action. Simply put, I watched Portland State, and there's not a lot to write home about. Gabe Downing at the start at quarterback. He was 10 of 17 for 91 yards and 2 interceptions. John Keawe Sagapolutele, who I actually thought might end up as their starting quarterback coming as a transfer from the FBS level to the FCS level, he wasn't much better. 6 of 14, 57 yards, 1 interception. It was a really, really bad day at the office for Portland State. And everything that I read about this and I watch that game screams to me that BYU, if you're LJ Martin and Sione Moa, and even if you're Bear Bachmeier, you're licking your chops because this is a game ripe for the taking for BYU. BYU should, in theory, be able to name their score against Portland State. Our friends at FanDuel originally had this game when it opened the lines at 34.5 points in terms of the favorite for BYU. Well, that's decidedly gone up because Portland State got absolutely smoked by a program at their level. Now they're going to face off against a Power 4 team. Yeah, BYU should roll in this one. Now, that, I think, is an easy 1-0 for BYU, but the second week, it's a fellow Power 4 program in Stanford coming to BYU. You stayed up, and we were staying up. It was in the evening, watching Hawaii take on Stanford. You got treated to a really, really solid game. Now, Hawaii, Micah Alejado, their quarterback, since he was playing on one foot, still completed 27 of 39 passes, 210 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was really good in this game. He also ran 10 times for 36 yards, but he was like the inverse of what Ben Gulbranson was as the starting quarterback for Stanford, which they didn't switch any quarterbacks out in this game. Ben Gulbranson for the game, 15 of 30, 109 yards, 3.6 yard per attempt average, and 1 interception. His QB rating, 13.2. Just abysmal numbers. And Tom Fornelli from CBS Sports also put this out. Stanford averaged negative 0.33 EPA per dropback in yesterday's loss to Hawaii. For context's sake, the worst team in the 2024 season, the entire season last year, was Southern Miss at minus 0.23. Atrocious quarterback play from Stanford. And I saw some Utah fans saying, hey, how should you feel about BYU's quarterback being beat up by Ben Gulbranson? Wasn't beat out by Ben Gulbranson. I will say it here. I'll say it again, that if Bear Bachmeier was still at Stanford, he would have been the starting quarterback in that game. And I'm not going to lie. I would expect that a guy like Bear Bachmeier, as young as he is, when you're a 6th-year senior, speaking of Ben Gulbranson, and you put up that type of stats out there, it's not great. Stanford looked like to me a team that is endeavoring to become more of what they were under Jim Harbaugh for many, many years. They called it intellectual brutality. That was the name they had for it. And what they did is line up an I formation and just cram it down your throat time and time again, control the line of scrimmage, controlled the time of possession, and grounded enough points to win games. And they won at a very, very high level doing that under Jim Harbaugh. That experiment, yeah, it may work for a time because they had at least one drive. I think it was 20 plays. They punched in for a touchdown to take a brief lead on Hawaii before the Rainbow Warriors rallied back. And Micah Ford had 26 carries for 113 yards. Running for 177 yards as a team is a solid number for Stanford. But I'm telling you, I look at these two teams. This may be me having to eat crow down the line. I don't think I will. But the simple fact of the matter is watching both of these two games, the opening stanza for Portland State and Stanford, screams to me that BYU, if they're not 2-0 by the time we get to the first bye week in week 3 of the season, something has gone horrifically wrong for the BYU football program. We have talked a lot that it is a pretty soft schedule to open for BYU. In fact, it looks even softer than it did on paper before we saw these two teams take the field. So it is the perfect opportunity. I know that some of you out there, I saw comments on social media about it saying, hey, how many quarterbacks are we going to see play against Portland State on Saturday? I'm not going to lie. I don't want to see 4 quarterbacks playing in that game. I want to see a guy like Bear Bachmeier play at least 3/4 of that game, get as many reps as possible with the first string offense and get him as comfortable as possible, because it's only the level of difficulty only goes up from there. Even if it is Stanford, they are still higher level of athletes BYU faces the following week. And you need to get a guy like that as many live game reps as you possibly can. So some of you may be crowing midway through the third quarter this coming Saturday saying, why is Bear still out there? I think it's absolutely the right play to keep him out there as long as you can. Maybe the fourth quarter, yeah, you give McKay Hillstead and Trayson Bourget or even an Emerson Geilman a shot at quarterback on those series late in the game. But I'm telling you, do not lift him at halftime unless you have built something like a 50-0 lead. I'm telling you, he needs those reps. So that's something to pay attention to. But the point remains. Everything points to BYU having an incredible opportunity to start this season hot, build some momentum, and the first 2 opponents for BYU look very, very ripe for the taking. All right. Position groups that are going to play a critical role in BYU's success or failure this year include playing on the edge, getting after the opposing quarterbacks like Ben Gulbranson or whoever they play from Portland State this coming Saturday. Well, Kelly Poppinga's job is to juice up the pass rush. It's been something he's been endeavoring to do since he arrived in Provo alongside Jay Hill and that revamped defensive staff. What does he make of the young talent he's got at defensive end? What does he hope to accomplish? And also, what does he expect from a veteran-laden special teams unit? He'll explain all of that in an exclusive conversation we had coming up next right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Rougiette. You probably heard of Viagra or Cialis, maybe even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiette Ready. Rougiette is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Simple as that. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rougiette's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours. You can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. And the best part is if traditional options have not worked for you, Rougiette might be the answer you're looking for. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch to Rouge yet. You even read real customer reviews on their site. It's helping a lot of people feel more confident and present and making sure that you are being taken care of. Head to rougiet.com/lockedon and use the promo code LockedOnCollege for get 15% off your order today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege and using the promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rougiet website for full safety information. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. I have an important request for you guys out there. Locked On, the network, wants to hear from you guys. We put together an incredible survey to learn more about our customers and make your favorite podcast even better. It's your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and even answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes the survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You also can find the link in our show notes. Thank you for helping us out. All right, let's talk about BYU football with a guy that I think knows a lot about him. That is Kelly Poppinga. He is an absolutely brilliant mind. I have always enjoyed my conversations with him, and he's got a unit this year, speaking of the edges unit, defensive ends and the like for BYU, that are endeavoring to really bring the pass rush. And we heard Jay Hill after BYU's first scrimmage of the year saying that the pass rush is real good right now. Well, that screams that the young talent BYU has brought into this program to juice up that pass rush is starting to play. Now, there are some veterans in that unit, Bodie, Schoonover, who else am I thinking of? Logan, Lutui. But there's a lot of young talent, Hunter Clegg, all the different names that come to mind, Ephraim Asiata and the like. They have a big opportunity early on this season to really get after the quarterback. And we talked about how soft this schedule is looking like for the BYU football program. Well, it's going to allow a guy like Bear Bachmeier to settle in. We should also let these young defensive ends to settle in as well. And as well, we'll also get to this in the conversation, a veteran-laden special teams unit. You have an All-American candidate at kicker in Will Ferrin. You got a very, very solid punter in Sam Vander. Haar. Well, what does a guy like Kelly Poppinga expect from all of these guys? He explains that right now, right here on Locked On Cougars.
Coach, I want to start off with your defensive end unit. Obviously, a lot of new bodies in this camp. How have things progressed so far, in your opinion?
Yeah, a bunch of young guys that I think have come along really fast. Super excited about all of them. You know, you got some experience with Logan Lutui and then a bunch of young guys. With Hunter Clegg right off his mission, I think he's really stood out to me. Orion. Kaufusi has worked his butt off and is right there in the mix. And then Ephraim Asiata, Tausili Akana, Nusi, Tamupeu. I feel like I got 6 or 7 deep right there. Kini Fonohema's done some good stuff. So it's going to be tough to dwindle it down to like a 2 or 3 deep to get ourselves ready for Portland State. But that's how you want it. That's what great programs have, is they have good depth. And this is the best depth I think I've ever dealt with here in a long, long time. So.
Has it been a concerted effort to build up that depth in this camp, though?
Yeah, no, it's been, a lot of reps have gone around. Like, it's not, nobody's getting overloaded with reps. I've spread it around pretty good, and the competition's been really tight. And so the scrimmage the other day, there were some guys that stood out, Hunter Clegg being one of them that did a really nice job, and then Tausili Akana did some really good stuff in the scrimmage as well. But before that, and even today, things have been pretty even. And, I keep challenging the guys that somebody's got to step forward and become the guy. So I'm anxious to see who's going to, start to take that step forward in front of everybody else to see who's going to be the dude.
You got an interesting mix of bodies, because you mentioned Tausili Akana, who's a little bit skinnier of a guy who came over from Texas. You have a Bodie Schoonover, who Jay Hill and Kalani said can slot inside if need be and play some defensive tackle.
Yeah.
How do you balance all that?
Yeah, it's with Coach A. Coach A's done a good job. He's kind of taking the bigger ends right now, and I'm staying more with the more true edge rushers. It's a conservative effort between Coach A, myself, Coach Puha, Coach Chad, Kaha. We got a bunch of D-line coaches that have done a lot of really good things in college football, and it's fun to have all 4 of us working together to kind of figure all that out.
What do you like about Tausili in particular?
Explosive, man. He's explosive. He's slippery when it comes to the pass rush. He's hard to get, your hand for an offensive tackle, hard to get their hands on him. But an exceptional get off. Has a great toolbox of pass rush skills that make him kind of the next level type of guy. And so I'm just anxious to see what he can do.
What brought Logan back, in your opinion?
I think Logan just loves the game of football, and I think he had one more year of eligibility. He's not looking to go play in the NFL, but he's looking to get himself ready to be a doctor, and he had a couple more prerequisites to get into med school, and he had another year of eligibility, and man, he's been, for this young group, has been so good for them to learn the culture, learn the standard, learn how things are done, learn the defense. It's always better to have a veteran guy in there, and if we didn't have a veteran guy like Logan in that room right now, we would be extremely young. And so, I mean, most of those guys have never played a down of college football. And so for him to kind of let them know how it's going to be and what to prepare for, it's been, for me as a coach, he's like a second coach for me in there. And he's, in camp, has been our best edge player. So he's shown out as that veteran guy to be the best edge guy. So which you'd want to see from a leader like that.
You brought up Clegg a little bit earlier, coming home off of a mission. Is he capable of contributing right away?
Hunter will play this year. He's going to do some things, and I think he'll remind the Cougar fans of another guy that was here last year wearing 92. Now he's just wearing 90, but he there's times where you look at him and you're like, is that Tyler Batty out there? Very similar type of player, mindset very similar. He's very intentional, very pays a ton of attention to detail, and he's fast, he's physical, and he loves the game. So he's going to be on the field a lot for us this season.
What about a guy like Ephraim Asiata? He's not the biggest guy out there, but he's absolutely ferocious.
Ephraim's done great. We're excited for him. He's in the 2 deep right now and working really hard. Similar position that Glasgow plays. And so we're just working with him. And Nusi, I would say, is right there. And then Maile-Kaufusi, he's been out with a little dinged shoulder, but he'll be back, and I think he'll be in the mix right there too as well. He looked really good the first couple days of camp before he got his shoulder a little dinged up, but he'll be back in a couple days. We're just deep, and for me, it helps me in special teams. I love it, and it's the same thing at corner, at safety, same thing at linebacker. This is the deepest BYU team I've ever seen. So now, does that mean that we're going to be the best BYU team ever? No, there's a lot of stuff that we got to do to get ourselves ready for the season and prep, but at least we have the depth, I think, to compete in the Big 12. And if guys go down, I think we feel better than we've ever felt. If one of the starters go down, then one of the backups can step in there and just continue to roll as a defense.
I want to ask you about special teams real quick. You've got pretty much a loaded unit coming back outside of your All-American kick returner in Keelan. How confident are you feeling about your special teams?
Great. Yeah, I think we're ahead of schedule right now as far as just install goes, but the core is back. Like you said, Keelan, he was great for us last year, but I feel like we have Cody Hagan, Don McKenzie, Parker Kingston. We got some guys back there that I feel very, very good about at kick returner. Tiger Bachmeyer as well, experienced guy. And then punt returner, the same kind of guys. With you throw Chase Roberts in there, and Preston Rex has stepped up. And so there's a number of guys right now that we feel very confident as returners. And then that core nucleus is back. Really, the only guy in that core nucleus that we really missed from last year is Ethan Slade. He graduated. He was one of our best guys a year ago. But I feel like our safety group is very solid in the special teams realm, and our receivers are stepping up, and our running backs and our tight ends have looked great. So I just, Coach Gilbride's done a great job with that group. So I feel, when you have a deep team, then you should be pretty good on special teams. And so just got to keep working to exceed expectations. And it's not the expectations of the world, it's our expectations, right? Yeah. So we thought, we were good. My whole thing is good to great, right? Yeah. We were good, and we want to be great. And what do we need to do to be great? And it's the small little details and a little more execution here and there that's going to help us take that next step.
You mentioned Parker, both a punt and kick return. Is he capable of doing both, you feel like?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Yeah, Parker's an explosive guy. Obviously, we saw those returns last year on punt return, but you look back to 2023, he had some good returns. One against SUU, a big return against Arkansas that almost went to the house. And so Parker's very capable, but I think there's some other guys there as well that I think are excited to get their chance and show what they can do with the ball in their hand back there.
Kicking's a fickle thing, but how much better can Will Ferrin get?
Will is very intentional, and he's very detailed, and every little thing that he can get better at, he will get better at. And I think having Garrison Grimes, an experienced long snapper, with him has been great. Having an experienced holder now in Sam. A year ago, Sam didn't even know how to hold a football. He was thinking about rugby and Australian rules and all that. And so we have just experience around him. And then we got most of our old line back in the protection core. And so we are, we're excited about that. And I know Will's been very level-headed. He stayed humble. He stayed hungry. He's worked as hard as anybody in the offseason on our whole entire team. And so just got to put everything together on the field, come Saturday here in a couple weeks. And so it's going to be, it's going to be fun to see these guys back out there playing in the game.
Talk about Sam not being able to hold. Obviously, he's adapted to American football quite well. Has he gotten better as a punter?
I mean, Sam's hang times were a little below average last season, just being a little punchy with being a rugby guy. But in this offseason, he's really worked hard on getting his hang times up, and that's been a bigger deal for us, the emphasis on that. And then Fuller Schertz is our backup punter, who I think has exceptional talent, who's going to be a really good punter for us here in the future. But Sam's spot to lose right now, and I think he's made some big-time improvements.
Okay, last thing from me, you talk about going from good to great. What's it going to take?
It's just the really, in my opinion, it's the paying attention to detail and the small and simple things, right? And so being able to be better at the small and simple things and getting in situations. Last year, I'm talking special teams now, we get a ball kicked into us at the Arizona State game that changes the game completely. But then also some plays offensively and defensively in that first half that just comes down to execution, right? So small and simple things that lead to better execution in that Arizona State game, in that Kansas game, and just learning from those, mistakes. And I think those are the best forms of learning, is being able to have something happen and then being able to learn from that rather than having those same mistakes repeat again. So we got to make sure that we've learned from the past and we're ready to, be better here in the future. And we're excited. And the practices look great. So I'm excited to see our team continue to progress.
Kelly, thanks for the time.
All right, Jake. Thanks, buddy.
A big thank you once again to Kelly Poppinga for taking the time to join me here on Locked On Cougars. And as always, appreciate everybody involved with BYU Sports Information, Kenny Cox, Brett Pine, and the like, for helping us get these interviews on air as always. But I really appreciate a guy like Kelly giving that insight he gives, because I think a lot of people, those two units, speaking of defensive ends / edges, whatever you want to call them, and the special teams units, well, they were critical cogs in the success that BYU had a season ago in 2024, and they figure to play a major role in BYU's hope for success in 2025. And I think that young unit, especially at defensive end, has a lot to prove, but also has a major, major opportunity on their hands. All right, coming up next, we finish up today's show by catching up with Bob Maile-Kaufusi. He's one of the 3 highest rated prospects in BYU's 2026 class, which is ranked 20th in the country. Yeah, he's pretty darn good. He's a top 100 prospect in the entire country, and I had a chance to catch up with him last week after Lone Peak took on Orem in Utah high school football action. Why is he so dead set on succeeding now at a new position, offensive tackle, than he was as a defensive lineman? He'll explain all that and more coming up next right here on Locked On Cougars. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen today. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. They have an incredible opportunity for you guys tomorrow. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. The best part is, for just 24 hours, they give you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling out your MVP, even eyeing a long shot division winner, or you're ready to crown your Super Bowl champion even before week 1 kicks off, this is your moment to take your opportunity to do that. The best part is you can take a flyer on the MVP race. You think somebody's going to come out of the woodwork, put your money down on that. You want to crown your champion right away. You believe, like I do, it's going to be the San Francisco 49ers. Hey, you have your opportunity to do that. The best part is you also can parlay your division winner dark horses and get even more bang for your buck as well. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only, and that's tomorrow, August 26th. It's all courtesy of your friends over at FanDuel, where you can play your game. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. If you have not done so already, sign up for the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. Get the inside scoop on all things BYU sports. The best part is you get a 14-day free trial before you're charged a single penny. It's just $5 a month. Actually, in fact, it's $4.99 to join the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. Hopefully, many more of you will be joining us in the coming days and weeks right here on the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. All right. I am endeavoring this season to be out there talking to BYU's top-rated recruits. Now, BYU recruits nationally. There's a lot of guys across the country that are playing high school football all around this great country, but a lot of them at the same time are right here in my backyard in Utah. I was out at the Orem Lone Peak game. Now, I did not get a chance to catch up with Kauai Akana, but I did catch up with 2 guys that BYU has committed in this upcoming recruiting cycle. One was Bob Maile-Kaufusi. The other was Junie Moala, Lopeti Moala. Some of you may know him, but it goes by Junie. We're going to let you hear from Junie tomorrow on the podcast. In the interest of time, we're going to talk with Bot Mulatalo on today's show. Now, some of you may recall he was a standout defensive lineman for Lone Peak a year ago, was actually, in fact, I thought the best defensive player across the board. Well, he made an incredible decision this offseason to move over to playing offensive line and playing offensive tackle, in fact, for the Lone Peak Knights. It was my first opportunity Friday to see him actually in action playing offensive line. And I'll just say this, to my untrained eye, and trust me, I know some things about offensive line play, but I don't know it nearly as well as other people do. But from what I could see, it looks like he's been playing the position his entire life. He looks incredibly comfortable. He looks very fluid. And the best part was he was dominant at points. And I talked about Junie Moala, who's also a guy BYU has committed. Well, they lined up head-to-head multiple times in this game. And I'm not going to lie, it was an absolute chess match watching these two go head-to-head. It was fun to take in. And I had a chance to catch up with Bot after Lone Peak beat Orem in that game to talk about BYU, talk about his play in the game, and why he is so excited to play offensive line for the BYU Cougars. Here you go.
Do you feel like your transition to offensive line is complete yet?
I wouldn't say complete, but I would say I'm definitely improving every week. But it's definitely a hassle. It's definitely more detailed than D-line.
What's been the biggest thing you've worked on the most at offensive line?
Definitely the run game. I feel like that's where you get paid the most is in run game. Yeah. And then just working my pass game and, getting tips from Coach Woods and all them.
What's the feedback from Coach Woods about your play when you talk to him?
He said I have really good base, I really good bend, but he just said I should use my hands more and be more aggressive.
Okay, so I heard an interview with KSL last week where you're like, hey, BYU's my place. Why are you so dead set on BYU?
I've been a Utah fan growing up, but I feel like ever since my high school career started, BYU was a place for me and I felt the spirit there.
What about BYU set it apart in your opinion?
Sorry, what was that?
What was it about BYU that set it apart in your opinion?
Definitely Coach Woods and the culture there, what Kalani's building, and I want to be a part of it.
You moved to offensive line. Do you hope that you said you want to get paid, like the run games where you get paid? Was it because you see guys like Panay Sewell doing what they're doing in the league?
Yes, sir. Just seeing what he did at Oregon, I want to do the same as him or be better.
Okay. What about this team do you think is going to set it apart this year, speaking of Lone Peak?
Sorry. Okay.
What's going to set this Lone Peak team apart in your opinion?
We got some new guys, but I feel like we bonded together really well. So I feel like, with the Pulatans added to us, I feel like we'll dominate the whole state.
What's it like playing with the Pulas?
It's pretty easy. When I see that ball go up and I see the Pulatans going, I already know that's a touchdown. So.
Well, that one play that Jaron had, he makes the one move, he's off to the races. Is that fun to watch him do what he's doing?
Yes, sir. Oh, no, he does that every day at practice, so I wasn't surprised when he did that.
Okay. What do you hope to accomplish the rest of this season just in terms of your overall play?
Just get better in my pass game as an offensive line, and then also being a team leader. Just leading my team out. I feel like that's one thing I need to work on.
You're still playing some defense. You still enjoy being able to get on the other side of the ball a little bit?
Oh, yeah. Most definitely. It's definitely fun on defense.
Does it feel like old times when you switch over, though?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
It feels like when I was a D lineman.
Okay. Last thing for me is, when it comes to BYU, what's the relationship with the coaches like and just the players down there?
I have a cousin Keanu there. Mm-hmm. When I was first D lineman, Coach Paul recruited me.
So Tanavasa is your Keanu?
Yeah, Keanu. He's my first cousin. So, me and him have a really good bond. And then I know some of the other boys on the team, but, just switching to O-line with Coach Woods, I felt like I built a really good relationship with him and, Trevor Payne, all of them, and the rest of the O-line.
What has Keanu told you about BYU? Because he obviously made his own transition from Utah to BYU.
So what was that?
What has Keanu told you about BYU, just in terms of his own transition?
He just told me it was a place for him, and I feel and he went there for the culture, not for the money. Because he was getting offered big bucks from other schools, but BYU, that's just a special place for me and him.
A big thank you once again to Bot Mulatalo for taking the time to join us here on the podcast. A tease ahead to tomorrow. You'll hear my exclusive conversation with Lopeti, a.k.a. Junie Moala. Had a great chat with him in the aftermath of a tough loss, but he was gracious enough to take some time, and we'll get to that on our Tuesday edition of the podcast. Quick couple of other notes before we go on today's show. If you did not watch it late Friday night, you missed out on an incredible performance by the top-rated prospect in BYU's recruiting class, and that would be Ryder Lyons. I watched that game. They were taking on Grant Union High School in Sacramento, and Ryder was absolutely dominant. 31 of 37 passing, 408 yards, 4 passing touchdowns. And oh, by the way, ran in another. There's another sequence in the game. I think it was like on a 2-point conversion. He gets bodied up by some defenders, and I could just see him talking trash the entire time. This kid, he has got moxie. He's got the it factor. He has got swagger. He has got everything you want in a 5-star quarterback. I am uber excited to see Ryder Lyons playing for the BYU football program. And if you saw some of the throws he made in that game, it shows you why everybody, I'm talking everybody in college football, was excited to have an opportunity to land this kid. The Oregons, the USCs, and BYU, they were fortunate enough to scoop him up, and he picked the BYU Cougars over literally any other program he could have wanted to play for. We also saw another guy BYU is recruiting in the 2027 class who happens to be Ryder's backup. That's Bodie. And he came in the fourth quarter of that game. And I thought he acquitted himself quite well at the helm of this offense. Those stats, 31 of 37, 408 yards passing, and 5 total touchdowns. Yeah, it was like 3 quarters worth of action for Ryder. Dominant stuff. And the Grant team they took on is supposed to be one of the better teams in Northern California, excuse me. Really impressive stuff from Ryder Lyons. Congratulations to him. Also, Brock Harris, despite a tough loss for his team at Pineview, he only went out and put 12 catches on the board, 147 yards and 2 touchdowns. So incredible stuff from one of the other top-rated prospects in BYU's recruiting class. And the other notes before we go on today's show, it's a tough break, quite literally, for Jacob Robinson. Many of you know that I'm a diehard 49ers fan. I was so looking forward to seeing Jacob Robinson make the team as an undrafted free agent. It looked like he was going to make the 53-man roster. And in the final regular season game, he breaks his forearm. Brutal. I cannot imagine how tough that is to absorb for him, and I'm wishing him the absolute best as he moves forward here. I hope he lands with the practice squad for the 49ers, and when he heals from that forearm fracture, barring something crazy happening, I hope he lands back on the active roster at some point this season. I'm telling you, Robinson, we all saw it at BYU, was a guy who, I know he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he played a lot bigger than his frame and height suggested. And to break your arm in the final preseason game, that's awful. And I wish him the best, and I hope that he bounces back very, very quickly. And then the final note I got for you guys today is the only sport that's currently actually in its regular season is BYU women's soccer. And if you did not see it also late Saturday night, you missed the BYU Cougars, ranked 19th in the country, upset number 4 UCLA at South Field. Ellie Walbrook, who at one point transferred from UCLA to BYU, she had a brace in a 2-2 draw earlier on in the week at Cal Poly. That was Tuesday. So she already had 2 goals in the bag. Well, she adds the only goal in BYU's upset of UCLA, and you got to think that feels pretty good for her, being a former Bruin, scoring against her former team, and obviously leading her team to a 1-0 shutout victory. So congratulations to the BYU women's soccer program. It's incredible stuff for them, and they are back at it coming up later this week, Friday night, in fact. They host the Auburn Tigers at Southfield at 7 o'clock Mountain Time. It'll be streaming on ESPN Plus. Greg Wrubell and Carlos Swenson Haslam will be on the call of that one. But if you're not paying attention to BYU women's soccer, I would encourage you to tune in because they're absolutely killing it right now. All right, that is going to do it for today's edition of the show. Thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. For your second listen, make you check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith's latest rumors, portal entries, and signings across college football. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape with the Portal Podcast on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. And as I often say, thank you for being an everydayer right here on the Locked On Podcast Network.